Today I'm going to be showing you how to replace a battery on a 2017 Audi S3. You might be wondering, why make a video on replacing a battery? Well, because it's actually a bit more complicated than you might think. Let's get to it. This is my 2017 Audi S3 Prestige. Now, before I go any further, I do want to say that what I show in this video will work for any Mark 7, 7.5, 8V, S3, A3. It's all going to be the same for all the MQB cars. But when I got quoted at almost $900 from a dealer and just over $500 from an independent shop to get my battery replaced here, I figured there had to be a better way. The reason why this battery replacement costs so much is because Audis have a special battery adaptation. What that basically means is because there are so many different modules and electronics in this car that are constantly putting a load on the battery, pulling voltage from it, the alternator kind of has to know at what state the battery is at, and as the battery degrades over time, it needs to account for that and charge it more. The good news about that is it means your battery's probably going to last a lot longer than it would if it didn't have this special program. And like I said, original battery in the car has lasted me 6 years. Generally speaking, I'm lucky to get a battery that'll last me 3 years. Bad news, however, and I know I can already see people typing away in the comments, is that yes, it does mean that special programming is required. You might be wondering what happens if you do not do the adaptation on the new battery. Well, eventually the alternator is going to overcharge the battery to a point where it doesn't work, and then you're going to be kind of screwed and have to buy another new battery. The install of the battery itself is very, very simple, as you might expect. I went to AutoZone to get this. It was about $280. Expensive for an AutoZone battery, but again, it beats the dealer cost. Now, what we need for the programming, and the cheapest way to do the programming, easiest way, is through this tool. It's called an OBDeleven. If you're familiar with any European car, for the most part, I guess, with the exception of Saab. It seems like a lot of them use this OBDeleven tool, which is kind of like a baby tech 2. You can do a lot of programming, a lot of adjustments, and cool things with the car through this tool. This was about $115 shipped to my door. So all in all, I'm about $400 into this, which is less than half what the dealer wants. I just want to point out the costs on this to show that you can do this yourself if you're willing to invest in the right tools, because I know this thing is going to have future use for me when it comes to this car. With that in mind, let's get started with this. Very easy to do. Like I mentioned, we only have 10 mils for the two battery terminals, and then there's a 13 mil hiding underneath for the battery tie down. I will start by disconnecting our negative terminal. There's also a small little clip for our battery module. Can just push in on that and it'll pop right off. With our negative terminal off, we'll come over here to our positive terminal. If you look down in between your air intake and the front of the battery, you'll see our tie down sitting right there. And I'm actually going to remove the blanket for it because it just keeps getting in my way. With the blanket off, we can easily pull off the tie-down bracket. Let's slide our battery forward, and it's pretty heavy. Let's get it out of the car. If you're wondering which exact battery I have, here's the information right here. It's a 70 amp hour. It's an AGM H6. And it's made in Germany, so we know it's good for the car. You will notice that the new battery has these cutouts down here, and essentially when we install it, we need to make sure that these slide under this back here. And let's reinstall our battery. See, it just pushes back into place. Drop our tie down back in there. Make sure it is seated properly. Pull on it, make sure it's good. And let's start with our positive terminal. And next is our negative terminal, battery module. Lastly, let's slip our blanket back on. I did find it was difficult to try to get the battery in with this blanket on, oddly enough. So personally, I'd recommend putting the blanket on after. And one finishing touch, just put that on. You will need to actually put the positive terminal on, then the blanket, then the negative terminal, because this cable has to run on the outside of the blanket. With that part of the process complete, let's hook up our OBDeleven inside the car here. Our OBD2 port is just hiding right under here. When we first turn on the car, I believe we're gonna get a bunch of warning lights. Yeah, so these should all go away in just a minute. But I didn't even know I had hill hold assist. I'm going to ignore all that. Let's get to the OBDeleven. Shut up! Programming. So with the ignition on in the car, you'll want to open your OBDeleven app and select the OBDeleven reader that's hooked up to your car. Give it a few seconds as it'll need to hook up to the vehicle and run a few quick diagnostics. You'll see in the top left it has battery voltage at 12.4 volts. When I initially had the OBDeleven plugged in, it was far, far lower. Once that initial scan is complete, hit the blue gear in the bottom right-hand corner. That'll take you to a big menu with lots of fault codes that we will not need to worry about, as they'll go away after we finish this adaptation. You'll scroll down until you see Gateway and click on that. You'll come up to another menu once it decides to load, and within that menu we are going to be picking the Adaptation option. Click on Battery Adaptation and it'll come up with a menu with the current battery settings in the car. So we'll need to look at our new battery to see what the amp hours are at. My new battery happens to be 70 amp hours, so I'm going to enter that. The battery manufacturer is not OEM, so I'm going to put UNK in there, which stands for unknown, and hit done. The battery serial number, if you have an OEM battery, there will be a serial number on it. As you can see, my old battery did have a serial number in there. However, since this is not an OEM battery, I'm just putting the date in here just as a 10-digit serial number of sorts. And then lastly, our battery technology. This is an AGM battery. If you have something else, make sure you select that. And that's all we really need to do. At the bottom of the screen, you'll see it says slide to right. So we're gonna do that, and it'll tell us that the adaptation has been completed and we're good to go. Programming is now done. What we need to do is shut the car off, make sure all of the doors and everything are closed, and we need to lock it and let it sit for a couple of minutes.
Moments later.
After a couple of minutes of sitting, let's unlock our car, hop in. Don't forget to unplug our OBDeleven. Don't want to forget that down there. I'm going to turn the ignition just to the on position, and I'm likely still going to have all of those lights. Now let's actually start our car. We're going to turn the wheel all the way left, turn the wheel all the way right. You can see just about all those lights went away. And now the rest of them actually have gone away. You can also just go ahead and drive the car about 10 feet and all this should disappear. So yes, make sure you do the battery adaptation on your MQB car. I didn't need any sort of credits with the OBDeleven to do that. I was able to do it for free once I bought the actual OBDeleven. I can already see all the people in the comments saying, oh, this is why I'm never gonna sell my 1986 BMW 3 Series because I don't have to program batteries, new cars suck, all these electronic modules. Believe me, yes, new cars definitely have their perks, but there are their downsides as well. So unfortunately, in this case, you do need a special scan tool to do a lot of this, but that's a great way to save a few $100s. Like I said, the Audi dealership wanted about $900 for a new OEM battery and programming. I got a battery from AutoZone, just as good, AGM, made specifically for this car, and the OBDeleven, which is not going to be a recurring cost, all for about $400. And that OBDeleven will more than make its money back for me with other things on this car. But thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. I'm gonna go take this car for a drive and enjoy it now that I have a new battery. See y'all next time.